So please read carefully for that article. So again, like business and management studies are actually covering lots of theories, framework, calculation, and so on. But just stay away from that part because you are going to study that one in like second, third, and fourth year and some graduate school. So at the moment, what we are going to do here from the business and society is just try to understand like circumstances about business and society, what is going on, right? So like building some understanding is first. So rather than just try to memorizing lots of ideas, you just try to grab the ideas about what are the current issues, especially like the companies, the global companies. What are the very serious management challenges? You may thought that like customer service or innovation, developing new product, certainly will be the priority of these firms, but other than that, I think doing something good for the society is also very essential to companies, which was not even 10 years ago, but a very key emergent, evolving top issue today. So try to understand what kind of issues and keep circulating around the company, around our life. Just look also newspaper, for instance. A lot of stories about CSR covered in our newspaper. I just brought some examples about the current status of Korean firms' CSR activities. Small firm, large firm, any scales of firms actually doing CSR, and your job, our job is evaluate these firms' corporate social activity. Right. So the focus of this chapter, especially and afterward, is of course we have to define what is CSR, what is a good behavior of the firms as a member of society, as a citizen of a society, but also what is right behavior, what is right corporate social behavior, what is the CSR, what we call activity. We define what CSR means last session, but having said that, what is right CSR activity? That is actually the questions. You have to differentiate again donation and CSR activities, right? So totally different things. Donation probably say that kind of things that rich people like Bill Gates, Warren Buffett, or you guys here can do. But actually, the donation is not really the obligation of the CEO, like top-level managers of the firms. Of course, the management, top manager, CEO can do donation, but from their own pockets, right? Not really using company's money. So that means just put yourself as a position of a CEO. So you have to do very good things, but how? In what way? So in that sense, you have to differentiate a philanthropic activity, right? 사회봉사, for instance, and CSR. Right? So a lot of examples of the CSR activities. They call it CSR activity of the firms, but you have to evaluate whether that is really the CSR activity or not. Sometimes it is just a philanthropic activity, which is fine, but if that do harm to the shareholders or abuse the resource of the firm itself, then they have to stop it, right? So the point here is, again, continues from our last session, we have to define what aspects of CSR actually we can discuss more, and then how the what is right CSR activity, right? You have to be very careful for that one. And then how your CSR activity is actually connecting to your company's performance. You may think that, just look at our life, right? Do you think that a good person always end up with a happy life? No, right? Who say no? So that's why you said no. Why do you believe so? I think that's the very exact question. That's life, right? So exactly like good nature, the companies, their behavior does not always come with a good company's, say, financial performance, right? So we have to look at also the relationship with the firm's good behavior and the firm's financial performance. Anyway, profit making, bring the financial happiness to the shareholder is top obligation of the firm. So you have to also think about whether your good-natured behavior actually end up with more, better profit. Some companies are very good at this one, right? Doing a lot of good things which connected to their financial performance, but some other companies not really good at that one. So we are going to talk about that one. What's the relationship between the financial performance and corporate CSR activity? 4 dimensions of corporate CSR, right? 4 dimensions here. So when you say my company did a lot of CSR, that means actually a lot. So you have to specify what kind of CSR your company is actually doing. Your company do the CSR from the say in terms of economic responsible way, legal responsible way, ethical or philanthropic way. So you have to be very specific, right? When you say our company's strength is doing a lot of CSR. So as you see, economic responsibility as part of the CSR is simply your firm should maximize the profit and maximize the return to shareholders as much as possible. So that is certainly a very fundamental basic obligation of the top management companies, and it is part of course, the CSR, and it is a required CSR, right? No question about it. But what about legal responsibility? So it is also some of the very fundamental CSR behavior, activity, which is also required. As you see here, legal responsibility means that your firm should obey the law, regulation, rule, disciplines, and so on. It is also required. It is not expected, it is not an option. It is a required. So the point these days that the legal aspect of CSR is getting stronger and stronger this day, right? As you see, in the past, there was kind of a how can you say, kind of a latitude of the firm's legal responsibility. So under the name of social contract, the company, whether they obey or disobey the law, probably just not much things about it on the table. However, this day, the law about it is pretty much specified, written in written format. So all of the firms should look at what kind of law, especially environment and so on, to the firm's industry-specific situation. And plus also, the legal responsibility contain upright and integrity, right? Upright and integrity, like in Korean, how can you say? Integrity. Integrity. 도덕성, right? That kind of things, right? So you have to behave in 도덕성 way, right? Integrated way. Yeah. So that is, in the past, that is part of social contract, but it is now part of the law because of the Enron crisis, because of the Taikon accounting scandal and so on. And so economic and legal responsibilities, some of the very fundamental CSR, but above like ethical or philanthropic CSR is pretty much optional, right? May not really written in a law or document, whatever. So nobody say something to your firm, even if your firm doesn't do anything about ethical or philanthropic. You're just expected to do so. But this is part of like social contract, right? So even if it is not explicitly listed in your regulation, government law and so on, but company anyway have to do it. So the point, although a lot of definition of CSR in terms of what dimensions actually CSR specifically has. So we just follow the Carol, I think the author of our textbook. So, so if you are students who already study about the business and society, then you have to be very analytic when you analyze a firm's CSR activity, what kind of CSR activity the firm is actually undertaking, economic, legal, ethic, or philanthropic, and its effectiveness as well. Again, I think one of the, as we discussed last time, one of the leading, say, entrepreneur, like social entrepreneurs, kind of a landmark person in Korea is the founder of Yuhan Yangheng, right? Dr. Yu Il-han. It's kind of the pioneer entrepreneur who really did show models of Korean CSR, right? Apart from that, also again, I will talk about this one later again, but the point is that, where is it? Designing CSR strategy, right? What kind of a CSR activity the firm should have is actually, again, not doing a kind of a good things. That's not really CSR. I mean, do you know the campaign of 우리 강산 푸르게 푸르게? How do I say it in English? Our land green forever, ever, ever. So that's the campaign of which company? Can you imagine what company actually has this campaign? I think that's Yuhan Kimberly, another Yuhan, right? So when you actually see the advertisement of TV, you see a lot of 우리 강산 푸르게 푸르게, our land forever green, right? So which means that the company tried to do something to make our land, Korea, kind of green land, right? Full of trees, grass, and so on. Right? So actually the company did a lot of CSR activity on that part. So a lot of companies, you know what you and Kimberly do? Yeah. What?
They planted trees for Mongolia and North Korea.
Yeah, so what business they do? You and Kimberly. Yeah. You and Kimberly? Pharmaceutical? Really? Tissue. They just make tissue. Tissue, like toilet paper, diaper, any kinds of paper you use every day. So the tissue maker actually. So do you think that that tissue maker doing that campaign in 푸르게 푸르게 campaign, do you think that is really connecting each other between the company's business and the campaign itself? Do you think that there is kind of a connection? Yeah? In what way?
They planted trees. This is a company that kills trees. They planted trees, so they're like showing that, oh, we're not all about destroying the environment.
So yeah, planting and tissue makings are anyway related to some kind of a shared something, do you believe? Okay, anyway, that campaign really successful, right? The company really really improve the image, basically reputation and so on. So what other firms did was just follow very similar types of campaign as part of their CSR, but not really working that much, as much as the Yuan Kimberly actually did. So the point again, CSR, of course, it's a very good things to do for the society and community, but you should not copy the CSR activity, right? So I will discuss this part again, some later part. You should be very creative in doing good things. That's the point. Right? Otherwise, you are just spending your money for nothing. So in that sense, then what is the right CSR strategy that is exactly fitting to your business? That is actually the question. There is actually a lot of companies concerned. So I just brought the 조선일보, one of the leading newspapers, here, 함께 가는 기업 section. So every, I think, Wednesday, I'm not sure every Wednesday, but I see often this article on Wednesday. It introduced how Korean firms are actually doing CSR. What kind of CSR they are doing. So since the newspaper is only delivering the facts, so we here as a business and society students should be able to analyze whether that strategy is really the right choice of the strategy of the firm. So we will discuss that one anyway later. So the point is that this day, CSR means corporate CSR, right? So at least the legal forces ask you to whether or not followed the economic and legal responsibility. So the top two should be the thing that you do as a must. But that doesn't mean that the ethical and philanthropic responsibility is something that you can ignore. Right? So that means this day, CSR means total corporate CSR. That means you have to do all of these things, right? No discrimination on the types of responsibility. So again, like every company this day, especially the global firms, certainly has their own CSR know-how. Like McDonald's, for instance, they are specialized in kind of recycled things. And Coca-Cola Coca-Cola is only probably most of their CSR focused on get rid of the discrimination, equal opportunity by hiring, say, a minority group, female group, and so on. So the point is that the global firms, even though they do a CSR, they try to specialize their CSR in specific area. So that is part of their strategy. Right? Not really they just do a lot of good things arbitrarily. So before we discussing that one, just again, I distribute the paper to you guys about argument against and for the CSR, right? Again, this is what is a total corporate CSR, but somebody disagree. Somebody say that this is quite enough. That's it. Why? Corporation do more than that. So that is quite what is as you see, the argument against the CSR. And also on the other hand, there is an argument for CSR. They say CSR means the company's obligation of doing all these things. So what's your opinion? So very ongoing debate for 3 decades. No winner yet. But what's your opinion? So do you think that the CSR is quite enough within this responsibility, or CSR should cover all of this? That's the point. So that paper you should read very carefully. Let's look at that the first argument against the CSR here. So simply say here, certain lots of the economists actually aid this argument, right? Should not define the CSR broadly. That's what they say. So these are kind of a common argument. They say that. Do you know the Milton Friedman, very famous economist who got the Nobel Prize somewhere in 70s, 80s, I think, long time ago. So he actually opened up the ideas of the argument against the CSR. So his point, and also his followers' point, is that profit making, maximum profit maximization is actually the goal of the firms, right? By maximizing profit, they can hire more people and they can pay more tax, and what's more than that? So that's the point, which is quite right. And if company do, so mostly the company guys are the experts mostly on like marketing, finance, and operation things. But they are not really an expert in, say, social activity, right? So we should not ask them to do non-specialty area. They may even mess up the things even worse. So that's not really their area of doing. Just like, so which is quite also quite reasonable argument. And also the point here is this one, like very competitive in business field. So you should be very focused on what you're doing. And if you do social activity, it is more like, as you see, diluting your major business, right? You just distract your concentration, which is not good. And I think the powerful reason from them is this one. The business, especially the global firms, are already a very powerful entity. If they step into the area of social activity, then their power would become much bigger, right? Why we should put them more power by allowing them to do activity in social area, which is also quite right. So I think this part is quite makes sense. Have you? I think probably this was your the story when you were in high school a couple of years ago. Like one of the leading Korean firms, car maker, rich man, 재벌, right? He donates a huge amount of money to society. Right? About, I remember, $500 million, about 5천억, out of his pocket to society. That car, do you know what I'm saying? Because this is on the air, so I cannot say the name. Not on the air, but on camera, so he may be upset. But the point is, he donated that huge amount of money as kind of a back to the society, right, from his money. So do you think this is like 5천억, right? When you actually design new cars, how much it costs? When you actually introduce, say, What is mid-size car of Hyundai? Avante, right? So do you know how much it costs to introduce Avante styles of mid-size car of say R&D, research and development, design and so on? 1,000, right? Probably 500 million to 700 million, 5천억, 7천억 to make, say, not really make, introduce new, say, mid-size car, right? Very costly job. But actually, my assumption, also, I saw also some other people say the same way. What about like he used that money for making better cars, like whatever, right? That Korean car company does have a lot of competitors, like BMW, Mercedes, everywhere. So, but we cannot say that that Korean car company already dominated, compete and win over that German competitors. They have to run more, right? So, using that money for more R&D to make better advanced car, that's I think better strategy rather than just using the money for the society. So money back to society, community, which is also good things, but for the longer term, you have to be critical on this part, right? Also, that company, when the company buy a huge property in somewhere in Jamsil, do you know what I'm saying, right? Huge property right next to the Olympic stadium somewhere. So the company paid, I think, more than $10 billion, like more than 10조, to buy that property. So the company will build like headquarters there. So by building the headquarters, the company should decentralize all of the operation everywhere in the world, which is also quite good idea. But what better is the price. A lot of people say that the paying like $10 billion, like 10조 for that property would be so expensive. Too much overvalued price, which is quite right. But the company say that we consider that price kind of give money back to society, even if the price is high, we're willing to pay, because anyway the money will go to the say government, and government will spend the money for say society, which is quite right. But the thing is, if you try to use that huge amount of money, you should use your money, not company money, right? When Bill Gates actually or Warren Buffett donate huge amount of money, they never use Microsoft money, right? Bill Gates, for instance. Bill Gates used his own money, not Microsoft money, when he actually found Gates Foundation, right? So again, how to use a big money, huge amount of money to where is also important, but at the same time, which money of that big size is also need to be spending. So there's also a matter of other things, right? If you really wish to use a huge amount of money, you have to use your money, not company money. So that's the argument. So I think in some sense, the argument here is quite making sense, right? No matter what, the company should not stay away from the principle of the company's operation. However, on the other hand, some people say that company CSR should be done broadly. Right? You should do all types of CSR as much as you can. Because if you don't do that, somebody will let you do that someday. That somebody will be the government. Right? And also, if you do do a lot of CSR, that will anyway help your image, your interest, and so on. So why not doing that one? So that's actually a dilemma, right? If you are get involved in CSR anyway, then how much, to what extent, in what scale, your firm do the CSR? So that's why your firm's CSR strategy should be carefully chosen and designed. So that's why, as you see here, the researchers, scholars look at global firm CSR strategy and classify them. Right? What's the styles of global firm CSR strategy? Right? We know that like Levi's, for instance, or Timberland, for instance. You know what Timberland is. There are some of the very famous company for CSR, right? They like just what the name. Colgate or Timberland case. I think I remember that about like 5% of their the profit goes to automatically to say charity, for instance. Huge. Just simply say 5% of your income, right? Net profit goes to charity, not shareholders. So some shareholders may be upset about it, but actually that's how they do. Like Colgate, did a lot of things in building schools in like less developed country. They are really at the lead for that one. Again, Coca-Cola, for instance, very good at like non-discriminant hiring people. McDonald's, good at recycling things. So the point is, some companies are very defensive in doing their CSR. Just look at how the market moving, and they only do a minimum levels of CSR before government says something, or before social activists do act upon your firms. Or some firms calculate, right, whether the cost of CSR and benefit of CSR, and by comparing it, we just do based on the calculation. Like the tobacco company, the no, not that one. American one. What I just see. Marlboro. What is the What is the Marlboro maker? Yeah. What's the company name? What?
Morris.
Sorry, yeah, Philip Morris. I'm sorry. I just losing my memory. I'm getting in Alzheimer or something. Yeah. Yeah, Philip Morris, for instance, this company, their CSR is pretty much cost-based approach. Like, we know that there's a lot of social activists keep claiming that they got the lung cancer by smoking cigarette. So a lot of actually social activist movement. So what Philip Morris did? They say sorry to those smokers, or what? They just, rather than doing like CSR, they just did like a lot of lobbying things to the USA government and the other major countries' government. So they, according to their calculation, lobbying the government is better than just doing a lot of CSR. Well, the strategic approach, why, say, Starbucks is so famous as a coffee maker? Do you like Starbucks? Yeah, why? What? Tastes good? Tastes good. Really? Oh, you think so? Mm. What? Yeah. So Starbucks is their CSR activities pretty much very good reputation, very good image because of their, say, a fair trade. Fair trade. What is fair trade? What is it?
Those who gain the ingredients are given the equivalent amount of money instead of being paid less.
Right, exactly. You just pay the fair price, whether the partner, no matter what the partner is, what the supplier is. If you just pay the fair price to, say, developed country, and if you say pay less price to a less developed country, that is not a fair trade. So no matter who your partner is, you just pay the same price. So that's the fair trade. And Starbucks earn a very huge, say, a reputation in doing their fair trade. When they buy the coffee bean, in all of their purchase of coffee bean in fair trade way. But that's not actually the wishes of the firms. Originally, they actually at the beginning didn't do the fair trade. They was doing unfair trade, right? But social activists claim a lot for that unfair trade of Starbucks. So the Starbucks changed their plan, strategy, from unfair trade to fair trade. Right? That actually improved the. So in the short term, it may cost the companies material purchase, supply chain, but in the longer term, actually the company, the Starbucks, gain a lot. Right? So some companies are widely using the CSR activity in very strategic way. And finally, which is pretty much recommended and ideal types of CSR. A lot of, say, scholars or theorists say that this CSR, based on this approach, will be the ultimate benefit for everybody. So simply say, by doing CSR, you are able to learn what customers want, you are able to learn what your suppliers want, and also you are able to learn what you can do provide for them. Right? So doing CSR, consider this one as part of like learning process each other. Right? So that actually help you build better firm in the longer term. So that is actually innovation and learning approach to the CSR. The example, would be, do you know what Prius? Prius, what is it? Car. What car? Toyota. What types of car? Electric cars, right? So, electric cars. So the invention and introduction of the Prius of Toyota was not really part of their R&D, was not really part of their innovation plan. That somewhere at the bottom, it started as kind of a CSR activity of the firms. Why not? Like a lot of car companies, you know, that very anyway susceptible to the environmental issue anyway. So as part of their kind of a weakness, the Toyota anyway have to do something. But rather than doing something for nothing, the company start that something as building, say, electric cars. but at the beginning, very money-consuming, investment-consuming project because nobody actually makes sure whether that electric car will be commercially successful or not. But actually, we know Prius is really at the lead of electric cars. So the company, Toyota, certainly very promising. So before we go break, what the point here is that what this slide tried to mean to us is that leading global firms who has the long experience of CSR activity, especially in the US, North America, or Europe, they have a strategy, certainly. Right? Not doing good thing is not really CSR. They have a like very wise and a smart mindset for having that CSR. So based on that, we can classify their approach to their CSR. So we cannot say that which one may, this one, we cannot say one thing is better, superior to the other, but the point again is that you should actually position yourself from these various different approaches. Okay, let's have a break and then we move on to the final part of the slide. So CSR is everywhere. CSR for the company and CSR even for the university like us, like the department of DIS here. So people are asking what kind of CSR the academic department plan to do. Right? So like DIS here, for instance, now we are the University of Hanyang here. Now, a season of, say, strategic planning. Right? So every department of Hanyang University prepare the plan of this year and do the presentation to the headquarters about what we are going to do. So all other departments actually do that job, including ourselves here. And in that presentation, there is some items to present, right? What should be our plan of academic achievement? What should be our plan of, say, education achievement? Plus, what is our plan of CSR achievement? That is also part of our presentation to the headquarters. So from the DIS perspective, among many other CSR activity, what will be the best one? I'm asking you, what will be the best CSR activity to us? Just think of us here, DIS as a company, right? Then what would be the best CSR activity? Just think about it. So I ask other students, like second, third, and fourth year students, what should be our CSR activity? And they just collect some ideas and give it to us, give it to me. And now it is part of our presentation. And that CSR activity pretty much about like translating things, helping, say, foreigners who are traveling this country, or who are helping, say, foreigners from less developed country in terms of cultural adjustment and so on. So a lot of CSR activity of DIS is related to the activity of, say, internationalization issue, right? Obviously, that job very fitting to our department characteristic, because the student member here from actually having a lot of international experience and good at languages in other country. So that kind of activity cannot be the job of, say, 국문학과, for instance, right? Or engineering department, because even though they wish to do that, they don't have the ability to do so. Because that job, particularly, especially good at our department, say, core competencies. Just look at what you have here as a human asset here. So the point again, your CSR should be something related to your core competencies, right? So I'll talk about that one later. So the point here is, again, the point is here is that CSR in 21st century means more than you imagine, right? So, and now there are more and more common sense that company actually ultimately can make more money profits by doing more right things. So again, like terminology definition here, responsibility means here kind of a condition. So your kind of a mission to do something for the benefit of society. When that mission materializes into real action, that's what I call a responsiveness. So please do make the differentiation between the responsibility and responsiveness. And again, so company does a lot of CSR for nothing, right? They do CSR by expecting something. They don't do the CSR for nothing, right? They always have some expectation from it. So that's what I call a performance. What kind of expectation they try to get out of their CSR? Financial gain, reputation, good image, everything, right? So the problem, pretty much academic problem here, like if you do good things, then how can you measure whether your good things related to whether your good behavior improve your say performance? To what extent your good performance, good behavior contribute to your say life, for instance? You may say, yeah, I get help by my good behavior, but in social science, everything must be measured, especially in business field. If you say helped, improved, then they may say how much? Can we express in number, calculation? So in that sense, when you say improvement in our performance, then you have to also define what kind of performance, right? Financial performance, or your status in the society, your image, and so on. So this is actually talking about that one, right? Again, the definition by Carroll, by the author of the textbook. Again, this is also a very controversial issue in CSR studies, right? Some people say CSR's contribution should be defined this way or that way, and there's not really agreement on that measurement issue. But let's stick to the Carroll's definition here. So the point again is here, CSR's contribution can be measured by here three dimensions. That's actually the point. How to measure, how to calculate, you will learn somewhere in a master or PhD programs later. So finally, corporate citizenship also conceptually, it means your firms say earn corporate citizenship. That means your firms not only recognize the need of CSR, but also your firm did something actually for it, and then you actually firm earn something from it. When you actually have done all these things together, then that status is what I call corporate citizenship. Sounds like vague here, but corporate citizenship simply this one. First, three things actually corporate citizenship indicate. Let's say that your firms are, say, citizens of the say modern world. So, or your firm say earned corporate citizenship. That means your firm behave ethically, right? Behave ethically. That's the first element, and the second one is your firm really did good for your stakeholders. We are going to talk about what stakeholders next week. So that is actually the second thing. And last, protect your environment. That's the third. Your firm protected environment. The environmental protection is a kind of a new item in the CSR issue. Environment, right? No contamination, no pollution. So this day, I think sometimes rather than helping community, your brilliant new ideas in, say, diminishing gas emission, for instance, that is already considered a huge CSR, right? Because say reducing the say CO2, for instance, that means actually a lot. Like helping community means like you just donate your money for poor neighborhood. However, reducing your gas emission means you change your say operation process. Also, that means also you introduce new, say, how can I say, operation, manufacturing, or introduce, say, new technology, and so on. Right? So this day, particularly environmental protection, account for a huge part of the CSR activity and corporate citizen. Finally, do you know what is like the most admired company? So I think because of the popularity of the CSR, nowadays a lot of people rank the company not by their profit, not by their revenue, but by their, here as you see, who are the most admired companies, right? So who are the most admired company? Nothing to do with the profitability or 가장 존경받는 기업, right, in Korean? Who are the most admired companies, right? Actually when so the like Fortune magazine or Interbrand, like research company, and this company just investigates a lot of global firms and they choose who are the most admired company. Right? What it means, why they choose the most admired company. So most admired company means the company that really did good things to all of the people, society, community, all humankind, right? Who is number one in the world? I just saw the newspaper today, this morning. Have you seen the newspaper today? Who are the number one most admired company? I just don't believe it. What? What? No, I thought Google or something like that. What? No. What? No, not really. Not Sony. The most admired company, I mean, actually, the most admired company always vary depending on who actually surveyed, right? Not really Coca-Cola. Number one is Rolex. I don't know what the company did for the community or whatever, but it used to be like Google, Coca-Cola, we know, or McDonald's. We know these firms really did good things for society, but I think the survey this year is quite interesting. Rolex, the watchmaker, number one. Samsung, number 17, which is quite good. And number two is Walt Disney, Google number 3, BMW last year BMW was number 1, but this year number 4. Lego, Microsoft, Canon's, Sony, Apple's are in the list of top 10. So the most admired company means very good reputation. The company with very good reputation, because that means people have a very good image on these companies. Without really a good CSR activity, you just cannot name your company as a top list there. So this day, a lot of global firms try to be top ranked on that admired company list, because it will help not only the image, but ultimately also the firm's profitability at the end in the long term. So let's stop here. It's pretty much all about what we have discussed. So next Wednesday, we are going to talk about then how can you design the best CSR activity to yourself. This is also a very ongoing discussion. A lot of companies want to know about what is the best CSR strategy without really, say, abusing our money. So we are going to talk about that one, and then we are going to talk about the stakeholder approach to the CSR. Again, the chapter 2 is, I think we can say, the core of this course. So please read carefully. And please be seated because there's some announcement.